Vegans are big on promoting collective action. We care about big challenges, and big challenges means getting people moving together in a good direction. And in this video, we're going to explore why this has been so hard and what's possible now that wasn't possible before. So if we look at all collective action in the past, it was largely controlled by government. Government is the big collective force. And the challenge with government is that it rules by force. And so when you rule by force, when you force people to comply and make agreements in that way, you're always sowing the seeds of the undoing of those agreements. And we can see that that's happening. Wherever governments have tried to step in and regulate, and I'm not for ending the regulations. It was as good an effort as could be made, but it's just limited. It's limited, and you're always getting people that are trying to undo it because people want to have their individual freedom. And the government is by nature against individual freedom. So what's the alternative? The alternative is peaceful, collective organizing. Now, most people who organize, they organize collectively, peacefully, but in the end, it's about trying to gain political power. And I did that for a decade in the 90s. I was co-founder of an environmental group in Washington, and we had our little fantasies. We thought if we could get organized, we could get enough control of the government to force other people to do what we wanted, which in this case, we wanted them to stop cutting down the last native forests in the United States. But we had that drive to power, and we were not using military force to get it, but we were using language in a very combative way with that goal in mind. So whenever you enter in an arena like politics, which is at the back of politics, is there's always a military. There's only so far you're going to get. Now, interestingly, hundreds of years ago, this idea called capitalism, it grew as a response to the feudal power, especially in Europe. But really now, if we look all over, even Russia has a stock exchange. So most of us, most people who care about good things often think capitalism is the cause of problems. No, it's a system that was designed to allow something where people could collectivize without the force of military. So at its root, it's a peace-based system. But of course, people are not peace-based in their own heads. So what goes on here, how far we've evolved toward peace internally, that's the limitation of capitalism. It's not the system itself. And sure, the system can be evolved more. And I think as we see cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin evolving, we're going to see more opportunities for more peace. But when we start looking at the system itself, that's not the problem. The problem is people themselves don't know how to handle peace. And it's like if you imagine a big bowl of cookies and it says, help yourself. Most people will take one or two for themselves and leave something for someone else. But every once in a while, somebody comes in and they say, oh, a whole bowl of cookies, they're free. I'll grab the whole bowl. I'll grab the whole bowl and go sell it. That's how we've got so much destruction. There's a free-flowing river, people want to bottle it and turn it into bottled water and make a buck. So people can't, in a way, people don't have the capacity to be trusted yet with freedom. But I don't think the solution to that is more military force. I think the solution to that is let's keep trying. Let's keep practicing freedom where we can. Now, one of the big constraints on freedom in capitalism happened in 1933. So capitalism evolved over hundreds of years, and then finally it made it to the US, and we had the stock markets. and the U.S. stock markets, and there was no regulation on finance. You could say whatever you want to say, you could do whatever you want to do. It was called buyer beware, caveat emptor. That was the rule of finance. Very simple. Now, of course, in a free system like that, you had fraudsters, people who created stock offers with no intention to do anything except just collect money. They had no desire to build a company. They just were exploiters of the open system. And so by 1933, the government said, well, people are being duped, right? Heaven forbid we should actually train people how to handle freedom. Let's take the freedom away instead. And that's what happened in 1933. The US and eventually pretty much every Western culture put constraints on the ability of people to organize financially. And that really has had a big impact on the shape of the world economy and the fact that so much of our economy is dominated by companies that were formed before that era, before the area of regulation of free speech when it comes to finance. Well, fortunately, after about 86 years of that, government leaders began to realize that this wasn't a totally good idea. And so starting in 2013 and 2016 in the US, something called investment crowdfunding became legal. And that brought back a very high level of freedom of speech, allowing people of all walks of life to aggregate capital for whatever purpose they want. It was almost impossible before that. The fact that we've had any entrepreneurship at all, in a lot of ways, is almost a miracle, given the restraints on the flow of capital before 2013. So now we have these new rules, and now we have this opportunity to come together as citizens of the world and make peaceful agreements with our money that are not backed by force. And it really hasn't been tried yet. How big can we get? How much can peace work to create solutions to what the governments have failed to do for decades and even centuries? The governments for centuries have failed to put the cultural collective interest at the forefront. And it's not about blaming the governments. It's like the government wasn't designed for that. It was designed to allocate power. And so if you're using the wrong cultural tool, you're going to always get the wrong results. It's like trying to use the wrong screwdriver, using a hammer where you need a wrench. So I admire people who try to make progress in government. As I mentioned, I attempted that for 10 years until I saw the futility of it, or the limitation. It's not totally futile, but it's very costly and very limited. So if we want to go next level, we want to use something different and try something different, and that's what Vegan Launch is all about. So over the next months, you'll be seeing that there's more and more opportunities for vegans to collectivize with small amounts of money and achieve big things. And that's a real great thing. And I look forward to sharing this kind of innovation and progress with you.